Happy Sunday, Jamaica. And to all of you within the diaspora, I'm sending warm greetings as well. You could have chosen to spend your Sunday any way you wish, so we're happy you have decided to spend it with us. We have a wonderful show planned for you. I'm your host, Katie Aloy Knight. More after this break.
The sun is no joke, especially in the middle of the day. So, what do you do to protect yourself?
Slap on some sunscreen that's SPF 30 or higher. Sunscreen should be broad spectrum and water resistant, especially for beach or pool days, and reapplied every 2 hours. And while you're at it, slip on a shirt to protect your skin. Light, breathable fabrics are best.
Lastly, seek shade between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. because this is when the sun's UV rays are strongest. Skin safety is your safety. Cover up today and try your best to keep cool. Oh, I know I've already said it, but please remember, not because we're black means we don't need sunscreen. All skin types do.
Unless you're living under a rock, scratch that, because I'm sure it's hot under there as well. I think it's fair to say wherever you are in Jamaica, you're feeling the heat, something that may be linked to the weather pattern termed El Niño. But what is that exactly? It is significantly warmer temperatures and reduced rainfall that generally increases the risk of heat waves and intense droughts. We're revisiting that conversation in this week's Get the Facts. Let's join the discussion.
Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with information on government's policies and initiatives. I'm Theodore Henry. We are now in the hurricane season, which runs from June 1 to November 30. And today we're going to talk about weather patterns and a specific phenomenon. Across the Pacific Ocean, growing attention is being placed on the possible development of El Niño, which is a climate pattern known for disrupting global weather systems. It has historically been linked to hotter temperatures, reduced rainfall, and prolonged dry periods across the region. Now, what could this mean for Jamaica? We have Principal Director of the Meteorological Services Branch in the Ministry of Water, Environment and Climate Change, Evan Thompson, to provide us with all the information we need on the topic. So, let's get started. Sir Thompson, welcome.
It's good to be here. Thank you.
Let's jump into getting some facts.
Yes.
Now, I love a definition.
Okay.
What exactly is El Niño?
Okay. All right. El Niño is really a part of a phenomenon that is recognized to take place in the equatorial Pacific Ocean, which means near to the equator in the Pacific.
Right.
And this is a pattern where they see the changing of the temperatures of the sea surface. And it kind of oscillates between higher temperatures and lower temperatures, lower or higher than the norm.
Right.
Whenever it goes higher than the norm, well, all together it's called the El Niño Southern Oscillation, ENSO. ENSO.
Got it.
But when it gets warmer than normal in that ocean, unusually warm and staying warmer than normal for a period of time, then it's referred to as the El Niño. This was first seen during the time of Christmas and, the celebration of the boy child. So it was named El Niño only because of that. It's
right.
Yeah, only because
That's interesting.
Yeah, just because of when it developed. But when it goes to the opposite side, where the temperatures are below normal for a long period of time, and unusually low, then it's referred to as La Niña, which is really just the opposite, meaning the girl.
Right.
So the boy, the girl, but the boy is the one that we are looking at in this case, where it's expected to develop and continue through the summer period.
Right.
It's not necessarily attached to a hurricane season. So it might happen during the hurricane season, but it could happen at any time.
One of the things that I've picked out of what you've said is that El Niño is about above normal
temperatures,
surface temperatures.
Sea surface temperatures in the Pacific Ocean.
So what weather impacts does that cause?
Yeah, it has a strange way of impacting the weather right across the globe. Because when that happens, in the same way that you see global warming taking place and it affects certain areas primarily, and then it translates across the globe with many different impacts, it's a similar thing with the El Niño.
Okay.
So it's warming of the oceans in the Pacific, but that could have the spin-off of changing the climate patterns because of the flow of the atmosphere. You could now see that the wind changes direction in certain areas of the globe, which includes the Caribbean area. There's a change in direction, and also with the impacts of it on different systems like hurricane season or hurricane activity.
Right.
And so it sometimes causes droughts in certain areas. It causes floods in other areas because these changing patterns just turns everything upside down. They'll have higher temperatures in some areas, cooler temperatures in other areas. So it really is diverse in how it impacts various countries. And what we would normally expect in the Caribbean is exactly what you said at the beginning in the introduction, where we tend to get higher temperatures, but we also tend to get lower rainfall amounts in our region.
So we are expecting that.
We are expecting the El Niño. It has started to develop. Usually when the temperature gets above half a degree in that same area of the Pacific Ocean and stays higher than half a degree above norm, that's when they determine that an El Niño has formed. It could get higher, 1 degree, 1.5, 2 degrees, and what we expect this time is that it could reach over 2 degrees. That's why you hear some people talking about a super El Niño, because at 2 degrees above the norm, then they refer to it as a major or a severe El Niño, and so you could have the impacts being a little bit more than would normally be expected.
Sir Thompson, not for the sake of, causing any worry or fear, but for preparation, if necessary.
Yes.
A 1 to 2 degree increase,
yes.
Does that track to say that, there's a higher chance of drought conditions in Jamaica?
That is correct. I mean, it might sound like, 1 degree, what's that?
Yeah,
it's just so small.
Right.
But small changes may have big impacts sometimes. And we are expecting that temperatures generally in the Caribbean area are likely to trend a little bit above the norm as we go through the summer period.
Right.
It's always warm during summer, and then if it's even warmer, then we could be seeing, temperatures maybe even getting to some of the extremes that we have experienced in the past. So we're watching very closely to see how that could develop this year.
Because we'd likely have reduced rainfall.
That's right.
And greater evaporation perhaps from the...
That's right. And that affects us. That causes a lot more stress, both for us as humans. We have to experience the hot days, but then at night we don't get a chance to refresh or get relief in terms of the temperatures dropping sufficiently to allow us a good night's rest. So we end up now having warm nights, uneasy sleep patterns. We don't recover as well. So it tends to add to some kind of stress for the human. And then with lower rainfall, and less water availability, then that could also add to the stress with dehydration in some cases. But then for plants, that's also significant. We could have food security being threatened. We have animals, whether our pets or livestock, could also be impacted in that way with the stress. With warmer temperatures, less rainfall, it will impact all of us if that actually does come to pass.
Got it.
Yeah.
We're going to go to a break now. More on this discussion with Evan Thompson, Principal Director of the Meteorological Services Branch in the Ministry of Water, Environment and Climate Change. Please stay with us.
Keep your heart beating strong. Your health is your wealth. Practice healthy habits. 30 minutes a day keeps heart disease away. Choose life.
Welcome back to Get the Facts. So far, we have learned that El Niño is often associated with reduced rainfall and widespread drought conditions across the region. And we'd like to explore with Evan Thompson, the Principal Director of the Meteorological Services Branch in the Ministry of Water, Environment and Climate Change, exactly what that means and how we can go about, going through that sort of impact. So, Sir Thompson, that's precisely where we'd like to pick up again.
Okay.
You have told us that it is happening, El Niño.
El Niño, it is developing.
It is developing.
It hasn't fully developed yet, but it's expected to develop and it's expected to be significant.
Right. So we mentioned the super El Niño, possibly more than one degree higher, which would result in possible drought conditions. So what do I do?
Well, we just need to prepare for drought. We need to prepare for dry conditions, unusually dry conditions, moving into drought. And it's interesting that we're moving right now through the summer period. We normally get some amount of rainfall, so it's really considered part of our rainy season, where we are right now.
Right.
And this, with less than normal rainfall, we could see that as we move toward September, October, when we expect that kind of a peak that would normally occur, that would fill those aquifers under the ground, and it would also allow us to fill our dams and our reservoirs with the water that we need to take us through the dry season that starts in December, goes through January, February, March. Usually, that's the traditional period. What we are seeing is that if rainfall actually is less than normal, we may not get to the levels that will sustain us through the drier period. And then that drier period will be drier than the norm. So we're looking for
super dry period.
Super dry period. So we could get a drought that rivals the intense drought that we experienced about 4 years ago, that went through December, January, February into March. We could see that being repeated. And if that does occur with less than normal rainfall, we're going to have to try and find other sources of water. How else will we get the water that we need? Whether the wells will have to provide that for us, whether we have to look to other means of whether it's weather modification or if we're actually going to go to like desalination or, different techniques.
Salt water made drinkable.
Right, made drinkable, that's correct. So we have to start thinking about what are the possibilities, what are the things we need to go to if we really do have this materializing. Also, householders need to think about rainfall harvesting. When we do get the rainfall, ensure that you save as much of it as possible.
So those blue barrels that we keep getting, we should be putting them on.
Yes, we have to. We have to save the rainfall when we do get it so that we can use it if there is nothing in our taps.
Right. So now is that time to, if you don't have the capacity for storage, build it out.
That's right.
A tank, a drum, what have you.
Yes, and of course the mechanisms to get it into those, whether it's going to be runoff from your roofs or whatever, if you have some other catchment areas.
Got it. Thank you so much. Our guest was Evan Thompson, Principal Director of the Meteorological Services Branch in the Ministry of Water, Environment and Climate Change. Thank you for watching. This has been Get the Facts. And until next time, I am Theodore Henry. Take good care.
Think positively. Focus on the power of optimism and hope. The thoughts we nurture shape our attitudes, actions, and ultimately our lives. So, reflect on the good in your life.
The Ministry of Tourism has officially launched Tourism 3.0, and with it, the priorities that will aid the sector to grow Jamaica. More in this next feature.
Tourism once again proved itself, not merely as an industry, but as a national platform for jobs, enterprise, foreign exchange, community confidence, cultural pride, and shared prosperity. So, let the message be clear. Jamaica is not simply recovering what was lost. Jamaica is building what comes next.
The Ministry of Tourism has officially launched Tourism 3.0, a strategic framework designed to transform the sector.
The future will not regard destinations that drift. It will reward destinations that organize. That is why Tourism 3.0 must now move from aspiration to execution, from a clear roadmap and measurable impact. Our roadmap, therefore, Madam Speaker, rests on 10 priorities.
10 priorities that are not necessarily about growing tourism in Jamaica, but about allowing tourism to grow Jamaica. To enhance growth and boost market strength, a series of new airline agreements have been reached to increase airlift to and from Jamaica, creating greater opportunities for both visitors and Jamaicans traveling abroad. The new arrangements include expanded service by Virgin Atlantic from Heathrow to 7 weekly flights, British Airways from Gatwick to 4 weekly flights, and Copa Airlines from Panama to 14 weekly flights by January 2027.
It is also including new services from Wingo out of Medellin, Breezes out of Tampa, Porter out of Toronto, Ottawa, and Hamilton, Air Canada from Halifax, Ottawa, Edmonton, and Winnipeg, and enhanced regional connectivity from Guadeloupe. And the importance of that one, small as it may be, is it connects to France, Madam Speaker, to Paris for the first time. This is a signal of confidence. It tells us that our airline partners believe in Jamaica, that consumer demand was held, and that recovery is being organized.
On the movement of goods and services, the ministry is moving to implement a tourism supply logistics center. The center will be the 5th industry-specific Special Economic Zone under the Special Economic Zone Act 2016. An agreement has been reached with the Ministries of Industry, Investment and Commerce and Agriculture, Fisheries and Mining to collaborate in bringing the project to fruition. Among other things, the logistics center will support coordination, warehousing, cold chain capacity and inventory planning. It will connect tourism corridors, ports, airports, farms, factories, packhouses, agro-processors, manufacturers, and community producers into a more reliable and efficient supply network.
This is how, Madam Speaker, we are going to move the small businesses from the margins of tourism value chain into the center of tourism opportunity.
The work to build a future-ready workforce and advance capital development has also started, with more than 25,000 local tourism workers being certified under internationally benchmarked programs through the Jamaica Center for Tourism Innovation. Annual certification output for tourism workers has grown from 40 graduates in 2017 to more than 3,000 by the end of the 2025-26 financial year.
These certificates covered guest service, food safety, hospitality supervision, hospitality management, hotel operation, leadership, revenue management, culinary development, and other disciplines essential to service excellence and upward mobility.
And as the digital landscape transforms, tourism is finding ways to keep up. The government has announced a plan to integrate artificial intelligence (AI) into the delivery of foreign language training for tourism workers. The plan is to get workers equipped to communicate with greater confidence across languages, cultures, and visitor expectations as Jamaica further expands its reach in markets such as Latin America, Europe, and the Middle East.
The future of tourism cannot be built only on rooms and routes and new attraction. It must be built on new skills. So Tourism 3.0 requires a workforce prepared for a world in which artificial intelligence, automation, digital booking systems, reputation platforms, data tools, and new service models are changing how tourism operates.
The Jamaica Tourist Board has also introduced an AI-based multilingual digital concierge that uses real-time data to respond to visitor queries and support trip planning. And as the government continues to mobilize opportunities for Jamaicans to benefit from the tourism product, plans for the Local First policy are being advanced to have it completed by the end of the current fiscal year.
For too long, too much tourism value has leaked out of small island economies before transforming the lives of local people. Tourism 3.0 must change that by moving Jamaica from being only a place where tourism is consumed to a country where more of tourism is produced, supplied, packaged, distributed, and owned by Jamaicans.
With Tourism 3.0 as the guiding framework, the Ministry of Tourism continues to build on the work to take brand Jamaica even further.
The Island Traffic Authority collaborates with the Jamaica Constabulary Force to conduct road spot checks to determine if vehicles are compliant with the certificate of fitness issued. Spot checks include checking tires, horns, body condition of vehicles, as well as vehicle lights, which are checked at dusk and dawn. The Island Traffic Authority, an entity for road safety good.
Every month of the year, there has been in our history some incidents of flooding that has taken place in some aspect of the country. And that is something that we have to take note of. Apart from monitoring and giving the forecast, we are also responsible for warnings. And so there are some warnings that we want you to take special heed to if you consider yourself to be vulnerable in any situation. When we speak about a flash flood watch, it means that there is a feature, some kind of weather system that is going to produce enough rainfall that makes it possible for you to get flooding. So it means start to watch because the water levels are going to be increasing and there is the possibility of the flooding. Now, if we start to see that in some area flooding has started to occur, or if we believe that the flooding has been so close to an area that it is going to happen in that area in a short space of time, we will escalate that flash flood watch and refer to it as a flash flood warning. So when we talk about a flash flood warning, it means not only that the flooding is possible, but the flooding either has already started to happen or is going to happen in a very short space of time because it is very close to that area. So it is important to know what the watch means as opposed to what the warning means. Usually with the warning, we will not only issue a warning, but we will also tell you what kind of actions are important or what you should not do, like do not go through flooded waterways because it could pose a risk to your life and to your property. Also, if you live in low-lying or flood-prone areas, if it is an area that is regularly experiencing flooding, a flash flood warning for your area would mean that now is the time to move to higher ground because the flooding has already started or is going to happen very shortly. It is also important for us to know where we live because sometimes in our messages we might not refer to the actual town, but we will tell you what part of the country the flood watch or the flood warning is relevant to. So if we talk about central parishes, we are referring to Clarendon. We're also talking about Manchester. We're also talking about St. Anne. These are central parishes. So you have to be knowledgeable of where you live so that you know whether the message actually applies to you. The messages that we issue for hurricanes and tropical storms are watches and warnings as well, like the flooding. But in this case, for a tropical storm or a hurricane, when we issue a watch, it means the conditions that are associated with the storm or the hurricane are possible within a certain time frame. If you hear tropical storm or hurricane watch, you could get the impact of that system within a day and a half, 36 hours. If we mention that it is a tropical storm or a hurricane warning, it means that you only have 1 day before that thing can affect you. So we are moving to how quickly you need to make sure that you are prepared by naming it a watch or a warning. So the watch is the first level of the alert that there is something that is likely to affect you. But when we move to a warning, it means now is the time to batten down because you most likely are going to experience that storm or hurricane. We might have a tropical wave, which is the least of them. in that it can still cause a lot of rain and it can still cause flooding and devastation, but it will not have very strong winds associated with it. But then there is the tropical depression that is a little stronger, because now you have winds that are moving with it, gusty winds, and it also has a lot of rainfall. Then you have tropical storms, which is a more severe kind of tropical depression because the winds are even stronger. And then if it gets even stronger, it could become a hurricane. So it's important that you have your radio and that your radio is battery controlled, not dependent on electricity, so that you can hear the warning messages that come from the meteorological service. Also bear in mind that if you dial 116, you will be able to hear the latest message coming out of the meteorological service related to any warnings. We cannot stop paying attention. We cannot let down our guard. You have to prepare yourself and stay prepared until we are out of the threat.
Are you aware of how Jamaican adolescents use social media? What do they do online? What do they post? Do you know if they are being harassed? These are questions you should be asking yourself, because it is your duty to keep your children safe online. Parents, here's what you need to do. Be active online and offline. Help your child to set up his or her online profile. Make sure you familiarize yourself with the different social media applications that they use and set some rules. Protect our nation's children and save them from cybercriminal attacks.
We have come to the end of today's show. I do hope that you enjoyed this package. To catch a repeat of this or any other, feel free to log on to our website at jis.gov.jm. Until next time, I'm Katie Aloy Knight. Do take care.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.